Hello everybody, welcome to Faber Booktime. My name's Gavin Puckett and I'm the author of a series of children's books called Fables from the Stables, illustrated by Tor Freeman, and also a picture book, My Daddy is Hilarious, illustrated by Chris Jevons. People often ask me who my favourite author was when I was a child. In all honesty, I was a reluctant reader when I was younger, but there was one author that could make me sit still long enough to read a book, and that author was Roald Dahl. I'm a huge fan of Roald Dahl still to this day. My favourite Roald Dahl book would have to be Roald Dahl's Revolt in Rhymes. That was the book that introduced me to rhyme to begin with, and certainly the book that inspired me to want to write my own books in rhyme. If you were to ask a younger me what I wanted to be when I was older, I would probably say a professional sports person. I was sports mad as a kid. I played rugby, football, I did athletics, but rugby was probably my first love, especially being Welsh. I still love rugby to this day, and I played for most of my life. I don't play anymore because I'm too old, but unfortunately my dreams never came true. Even though I did play, I never played professionally, but that's what I wanted to be when I was younger. My favourite breakfast treat. As a treat, I would have to say freshly cooked pancakes with plenty of Nutella and chopped bananas. But that's a treat. Normally I just have toast. And if I'm lucky, and if I've got time, poached eggs. Okay, let's turn our attention to the books. There are currently 5 books in the series Fables from the Stables, illustrated by Tor Freeman. The first of which is a book called Murray the Racehorse. Now, Murray the Racehorse came about by chance, I suppose. My son and I were driving in our car a few years back. My son must have been about 3 or 4 at the time, and we saw a horse in the field, and we started a discussion over whether horses could run backwards or not. And that gave me the inspiration to write this book, Murray the Horse, who's a racehorse who's not that fast, but he realises one day that he can run backwards. And when he does run in reverse, to his delight, he's quite a force to be reckoned with. I'd like to read some of Murray the Racehorse if I could. On a warm summer's day at a racetrack in Surrey, something odd happened to a racehorse called Murray. The events that unfolded were certainly strange, events that by chance caused his whole life to change. Murray decided as a young foal to make championship racing his ultimate goal. He dreamed of success, of riches and fame, dreamed fans the world over would cheer out his name. He came from a family of true sporting glory, where triumph and praise was a regular story. His parents won trophies and medals galore, and hope beyond hope that their son would win more. But despite Murray's plans to reach stardom someday, there was one major problem that stood in his way. A difficult hurdle he couldn't get past. Murray the horse just wasn't that fast. He trained as often as any horse could, but this dutiful racehorse just wasn't that good. His trainer once dubbed him a racing disaster, claiming that jockeys could even run faster. To make matters worse, Murray lived in a stable with racehorses far more athletic and able. There was Big Brandy Wilson and his brother Ned Plum, who were cousins of horse racing legend Red Rum. There was Bucky the Stallion and old Reggie Clover, each of them champions several times over. But the fastest of all was a racehorse called Pete, who was known to his fans by the name Thunderfeet. Compared to these marvels, Murray was small and had never been trusted by jockeys at all. Instead, he was used as a ground steward's horse, carting equipment around the racecourse. When he worked, they all laughed if he even dared canter, and they ridiculed him with their teasing and banter. They treated poor Murray as if he was dirt, and nobody cared if his feelings got hurt. The horse sometimes sobbed when he was alone, but he knew that his emotions should never be shown. He was certain the others would take satisfaction at seeing a weakness in such a reaction. Instead, he walked around with a smile on his face, ignoring their comments, still longing to race. Murray yearned for that chance to make his folks proud. I will be a racehorse someday, he vowed. One day at the stables, whilst Murray was walking, he happened to overhear 2 jockeys talking, discussing in detail a national race, planned to be held at that very place. This annual race was prestigious and grand, and took place on courses all over the land. Now the Speed Saddle Cup was coming to Surrey, much to the joy and excitement of Murray. Soon word had spread and the horses were keen to get out on the track for their training routines. Each jockey in camp put their horse through its paces, hoping they'd win this, the finest of races. Murray observed from the sidelines in awe at the strength and the grace in the horses he saw. He daydreamed of how it would be to compete and beat a true favourite like Thunderfeet Pete. But a spectator was all he seemed destined to be, since nobody took Murray seriously. His cumbersome nature was hard to ignore, if only he knew what this race had in store. In no time at all, the race day was there, and the horses had one final chance to prepare. They took to the fields in an energised flurry, cheered by the supporters and admired by Murray. The ground steward sat in the VIP tent, making the most of this special event. They soaked up the atmosphere, feeling excited. Murray, however, had not been invited. As usual, Murray was left all alone and expected to watch the big race on his own. But the horse didn't mind. He had thought of a plan that would tickle the fancy of any race fan. Glad to be rid of the stewards and farriers, Murray mixed with the crowd behind the race barriers. Now he could savour the breathtaking thrills and experience the feeling of spine-tingling chills. Murray picked out a spot in the very front row, and he gazed at the horses all raring to go. The racehorses gathered to check out the track, led by the jockeys perched high on their backs. Bucky the Stallion gave things the once over, so did Ned Plum and old Reggie Clover. Then, whilst trotting past Murray, quite unfortunately, Ned tripped in a divot and twisted his knee. The onlookers gasped and could tell by Ned's face he was terribly hurt. He could no longer race. Ned's jockey Tom didn't know what to say. He just patted Ned's nose as they led him away. Tom gloomily sighed and he followed behind, with dreams of what could have been filling his mind. With his head in his hands, Tom wished in his heart that maybe he'd still get a chance to take part. He turned one last time to look at the course, when there in the crowd, Tom spotted a horse. "That's odd," exclaimed Tom, thinking out loud. "Why is a horse all alone in the crowd?" The Speed Saddle Cup was about to take place, and the rest of the horses were all set to race. Tom raised an eyebrow, feeling perplexed, then grinned as he thought about what to do next. He quickly adjusted the watch on his wrist. This was a prospect not to be missed. Perhaps there's still time, thought Tom at a glance, and he hurried on over, seizing his chance. Murray was shocked when the jockey came near, tiptoed beside him and spoke in his ear. The horse's nerves tingled and he stared into space as Tom asked the question, "Fancy a race?" The horse blinked his eyes, feeling rather dumbfounded. His knees went all weak and his anxious heart pounded. Murray tried to stay calm, but he started to stutter, bewildered and dazzled by what Tom had uttered. Then, with a deep breath and a slow, calming sigh, Murray gained his composure and had one more try. He looked straight at Tom in his full racing dress, and fulfilling his dreams, Murray smiled and said, "Yes." The jockey was primed and all set to compete. He checked Murray's legs and examined his feet. The horse appeared fit. Tom had nothing to lose, so he called to the stable boy, "Get in some shoes." Now, most of the time, this type of command would be something all stable folk would understand. But of all the workers Tom happened to choose, this new boy had never before fitted shoes. But before the young lad had a chance to explain, the jockey was off to announce his campaign. The stable boy gulped. Bemused and befuddled, he dithered about, feeling nervous and puzzled. The race would soon start, and he knew he must hurry, so he picked up the reins and yelled, "Quick, come on, Murray." The boy led the horse to a small wooden shack and took down 4 horseshoes that hung on a rack. Murray's face beamed as he stood in the hay, and he wondered with joy what his parents would say. He could see straight away as he lifted his feet that these shoes were made for the racing elite. The young lad worked tirelessly, aiming to please, hammering nails as he held Murray's knees. The shoes were a good size and fitted quite tight, but when the boy finished, they didn't feel right. Nevertheless, Murray limped from the shack and met his new jockey next to the track. As the two made their way to the course to compete, Murray knew things were amiss with his feet. Each time that his hooves met with the ground, he felt an incredible urge to turn round. The jockey was curious and started to worry when he noticed that something was bothering Murray. "What's up?" questioned Tom with a look of dismay, and he asked with concern, "Are you feeling okay?" Murray just shrugged, feeling rather downbeat, and he glumly replied, Something's wrong with my feet. Tom checked out his hooves and gave a horrified grunt when he realised the horseshoes were on, back to front. But the race would soon start. They had no time to lose. Mary had to take part in those back-to-front shoes. Mary awkwardly trotted to the starting position, where the spectators scoffed at this late new addition. Then a ground steward heckled whilst giggling and grinning, "There's more blooming chance of a rocking horse winning." Tom knew too well that they looked out of place, but he also sensed Murray's desire to race. As soon as he guided his horse to the start, Tom gently whispered, "Follow your heart." Inspired, Murray nodded and took his position, knowing that this was his lifelong ambition. But rather than facing the course with his head, he turned around and led with his bottom instead. The horses looked stunned and the stewards turned pale when Tom turned around and held on to his tail. At first there was silence, not one single word. Then one of the crowd shouted out, "That's absurd!" A few other comments followed thereafter when suddenly everyone burst into laughter. But brave Murray snubbed all the sneering and jeering and imagined instead the crowd clapping and cheering. He once again smiled, ignoring the flack, and he knew in his mind there was no turning back. When he stood in reverse to Murray's delight, his legs seemed much stronger, his body quite light. These feelings had never occurred in the past. Incredibly, Murray the racehorse felt fast. So that's Murray the horse, and I hope you get the chance to read the rest of the story and find out what happens. Okay, the next book we're going to look at today is My Daddy is Hilarious, illustrated by Chris Jevons. It's a picture book all about the crazy antics of one particular dad and the bewilderment of his young child, not completely understanding what's going on and why dad's style is changing from day to day. So, my daddy is the greatest. My daddy is the best. Daddy's lovely clothes look so much smarter than the rest. His aftershave smells wonderful, like daffodils, it's true. When I grow up, I want to look just like my daddy too. Daddy's hair is shiny, it's wavy and so sleek. Daddy's hair is, oh, I spotted something odd this week. His hair was brown this morning with little bits of grey. But now it's black and all the silver bits have gone away. Well, it's bath time on a Friday and I've had another fright. Dad was in the bathroom for a long, long time tonight. When he appeared, my mum looked stunned. She coughed and spluttered, "Yikes!" Daddy's hair had changed again. It's turned bright pink with spikes. Now Dad has got a mohawk. It must be 2 feet tall. It's scraping on the ceiling. Oh, I don't like this at all. That looks like Mummy's jacket, and I'm sure that's Granny's dress. Where did you get those boots from? Dad, you look a mess. Okay, so that's Daddy is Hilarious. And once again, I hope you get a chance to read the rest of the book to find out what happens. So that's it from me. Can I just say a huge thank you for tuning in to Faber Booktime? And now, over to you. What are you going to read today?